Hello and welcome to a very special edition of LinkedIn Live with Project Optimism. This has been a really, really interesting year, to say the least. And each and every one of us, whichever industry we're in, wherever in the world we're actually located in at this present moment, we've all definitely sort of had our downtimes, moments when we've always, when we've wanted to give up, so to speak. But today, I have with me three amazing people from a city and a country which is very close to my heart, Melbourne, Australia, who founded this amazing initiative, which gives you and everyone in the world to basically tap into what you can actually develop from within yourself to become a little bit more optimistic moving forward. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome on board the three founders of Project Optimism in Australia, Noirin Mosley, Jenny Boymal, and Victor Perton. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Noirin, Victor, and Jenny for joining me on this very special live broadcast to talk about optimism and how, we can always find, semblances of happiness, of positivity in everything that's happening, during this time of, perpetual pause that the entire world's going through. How's everything going with you guys?
I'm feeling so emotional with your amazing introduction. I was like, whoa, this is, what you've done, Joseph, is amazing. We're so thrilled to be here.
So gorgeous, Joseph. Seriously, we weren't expecting that. Were we, Victor? Were you expecting that?
Well, Joseph asked us how we're going, and Melbourne was the city with the longest lockdown in the world.
That's true.
And I think we were all going stir crazy. People were really finding it difficult to stay at home for months at a time. Our kids, were home from school from April till October. And we don't have a long holiday in the middle. And, to have Noirin and Jenny, create this wonderful vision to the world of the habits of optimism, of little things you can change in your life to make it more meaningful and positive. And Joseph, your beautiful expressions and the animation of you will last for generations, I think, Joseph. It's just wonderful and wonderful to be with you.
No, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. So for all of you who've joined in from around the world, please let us know where you're joining in from. And thank you so much for coming on board this very special broadcast. So for those of you who are not connected with Noirin, Jenny, or Victor, I would definitely suggest that you definitely connect with them on LinkedIn and follow them. Noirin, she has been, I've had a discussion with her in the past on Create the Edge with Joy. She's a fantastic human being. Who's originally from Ireland, and she's been in the MNC space and in a few different sectors. And, she specializes in basically, events, functions, and corporate team building. And that's what she specializes in. She started a fantastic initiative called Educate to Elevate, along with Jenny, where, she's basically putting learning into practice in a positive manner. So, Noirin, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on board. And, Jenny, thank you so much for obviously joining in. It's a fantastic, experience to obviously interact with a person from your caliber, who is one of the few people, worldwide who's well regarded for their marketing and go-to-market strategies prowess. Jenny's worked with so many companies from around the world. And she has decided to follow her passion to basically promoting positivity and the beautiful essence of learning, so to speak. So thank you, Jenny. Really, really appreciate you being a part of Project Optimism and for coming on the show. And Victor, I really don't know where to start from, mate. I mean, you wear so many hats. He's a Chief Optimism Officer for the Centre for Optimism in Melbourne. He's the founder, editor, and interviewer at the Australian Leadership. He's got his own company, which is Victor Perton Global Partner. He's a barrister. by education. So, we all have to be very, very careful with what we are saying. We don't want to be sued in court. No, just joking.
Well, I'm on your side, so you don't have to worry at all. I'll just say, look, it was a fit of optimism on his part, Your Honour.
Good on you, mate. Good on you. Love that. And he's been an advisory board member for multinational corporations and government organizations based out of Australia. So, Victor, thank you so much for joining us on today's show. Thank you, warm thank you, and welcome to some amazing people from around the world who are joining in. Thank you so much. We've got people from Zulu, from Singapore, from Australia, from Melbourne, from New York, Nigeria, from Massachusetts, from Los Angeles. Goodness, we've got everyone coming in from Malaysia. Thank you so much, everyone who has joined in our discussion today. So, without further ado, I'd like to sort of start with Victor. You've got a fantastic tagline, that optimism man. Where did it come from? And
it came from the pessimism industry, Joseph. There's organizations around the world who come to your office and say your leadership's hopeless, your management's hopeless, your techniques are hopeless, your supply chain is hopeless. Pay us $5,000 a day for our juniors and $10,000 a day for our partners, and it'll be okay. So I was actually giving a presentation at one of the ASX top 5, so one of the top 5 companies in Australia by capital, and they were doing a retreat, and the moderator was a woman from one of these organizations. And when I showed up and introduced myself to her, she looked at me and said, "You're that optimism man." And I thought, well, that's a label I can carry for the rest of my life.
I can well imagine where you're coming from, actually, because my tagline, which I use, human CRM, it sort of came across in a similar way. I was actually speaking with one of my very close friends from Melbourne, and during her podcast, she was like, you're like a human CRM. You connect people from all over the world, and I was like, I love that, human CRM. So it's certain things just come out of nowhere and they just stick because it's something which basically sort of resonates with who you are as a person, and that's the main thing, right? So thank you for sharing that. And
Joseph, so what I do, the question we hit upon in the end is what makes you optimistic, right? So you don't need to be optimistic to answer the question. Yeah, for some people it's faith, for some people it's love, for some people it's life experience. But for me, it's now easy. Everywhere I go, people expect me to ask that question. What makes you optimistic? And I think all of your watchers and listeners, if they try it out on themselves and afterwards try it out on their husband or wife or kids, you'll find every time you do it, you lift yourself and you lift others.
Yep.
And I do it in alleyways. Those alleyways in Melbourne, Joseph, that people smoking and thinking they've escaped to have a fag, and I go in and say, can I just ask you a question? And they look at me thinking I'm some sort of, Bible preacher or the like. And I say, no, it's just what makes you optimistic? And they just light up.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And you just brought back some really nice memories of Melbourne, especially Little Burke Street and Little Collins Street. So for those of you who are not in Australia or in Melbourne, in my opinion, if you want the world's best coffee, you need to go to Melbourne, without a shadow of a doubt. And I have traveled to a few places around the world. I've not been on all the continents, but I would say bar one, I've been on all the continents. And I'm telling you, the best coffee in the world is in Melbourne. The best culture, I would say, is Melbourne. It's a city which I hold very close to my heart. So it's really, really good to be on the screen with fellow Melburnians and a few people from Melbourne, like Karen, who's joining in as well. So thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. Joy, from Malaysia, really, really appreciate it. Zara from the US, from a few people from Kuala Lumpur, Miss Suchi from Singapore. Thank you so much for your support. You've been a stellar support to me and for so many others on this platform. with your positivity and your laughter and your smiles. GD Naidu from Kuala Lumpur, thank you so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. So yeah, it's been a fantastic experience for sure. And so, Noirin, tell us how you came across Victor. How you came across that optimism man, so to speak.
Well, now can you hear me okay? I think my internet's a bit funny.
No, I can hear you loud and clear. I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me know if it's not. So I met Victor a couple of years ago, and he is very hard to forget. Very hard to forget. He just makes an immediate impact, and he literally lives and breathes the whole notion of optimism. I mean, he is the optimism man. He just is.
Yep.
And he was talking about optimism, oddly enough. And he was talking about it at a time when, not many people were, but he was brave and he owned it and he was infectious and it infected me. And I always remembered him and we stayed in touch. And then lo and behold, during COVID, we reconnected a bit because Victor was running his optimism cafes from the Center for Optimism. And I just thought, let's work together with Jenny on a course around helping people to be more optimistic practically and help their worlds. And Victor was all in for that because he wants to make an impact. So yeah, it snowballed from there. So that's my story with Victor.
Beautifully said. And you just brought up a very, very important point. And I think something which our common connection, Ahmad Imam, actually sort of brought to light very, very recently with regards to how people should focus not on influencing others, but on the impact that they make, because that makes all the difference, and that is so important. So I'd love to obviously welcome on board a few other people who are joining in. Sohaib Hassan, brother, thank you so much for joining in from Dubai. Really, really appreciate it. And we would love to sort of catch up for a coffee when you're in Melbourne. So that would be absolutely fantastic. So yeah, you need to get on your traveling boots on quickly, and hopefully Australia is going to be opening its borders soon, so that we can all be in one place, so to speak. But Noirin, yeah, absolutely, you brought up such an amazing point. It's all about focusing on the little things in life, which we sometimes take for granted, and basically sort of understanding the relevance of it and how it can actually sort of provide a bit of like a spark moving forward. And that's what we need to sort of tap into, etc. Jenny, last but not the least, would love to know how you got involved with this amazing initiative of Project Optimism, which is not just for individuals but also for corporates. Let me put it this way, because in my opinion, especially during this time of COVID clarity, COVID normal, whatever you'd like to call it, I think employees from around the world in different companies need their managers, their leaders to be understanding, to understand that everyone is facing issues, regardless of whichever industry they're in. So Jenny, tell us a little bit about your journey with Project Optimism, how you guys came up with it.
So, I mean, it's just been the most amazing journey. And, sometimes in life you pinch yourself with, wow, how lucky am I to be working with these absolutely incredible people. So firstly, I just want to recognise that 20 people who have been involved as narrators in the project, because really, for Noirin and I, working with these people day in, day out has just been such an incredible privilege, So Noirin actually came across an incredible project on LinkedIn, and it's called Project Displaced, and it's an organisation run by Anthony Cohen, and he runs an organisation which was all about helping industries with a lot of displaced employees during COVID. So there are a lot of, the airline industry, the entertainment industry, hospitality, there were so many thousands and thousands of people who were displaced, and he was one of those people, and he decided to start an organisation that was helping these people really in practical ways. So our first original idea was, how can we help these people? How can we support them? Noirin was running Race Party, an entertainment venue, an incredible entertainment venue where there was so much innovation and so much joy, that could not run during COVID. So we were really seeing this firsthand, and we were looking at, how can we help people? How can we make a positive impact? What are the things, in a time where, life was out of control. It wasn't like someone was out of control. It was everyone. None of us had control over really much. Now, some people obviously did really well during this time, but there were a lot of people who were so paralyzed by the fear and stuck by what was going on, that not only could they not, but they didn't even know where to begin. So we really wanted to look at ways that we could give those people a little taste of hope, a little taste of how can I go from A to B when I can't even imagine what B looks like. I don't know when B is going to arrive and what's happening. So I really, for us, we really see optimism as a lens. So you can choose it. And as the Dalai Lama says, choose optimism. It feels better. And, the only thing that we could control during this time was mindset, and our own mindset. We couldn't control that of others. So for us, it was really about looking at, how can we make that impact by helping people see that they can think a little bit differently and have hope and see positivity. And there were a lot of awful things going on, but how can we see the potential for the future and start looking at, well, what were the positives and so forth. It's been an amazing journey, and I'm just so thrilled and touched and grateful to have been part of it.
Hey,
No,
John,
absolutely.
I have to add something.
Go for it.
Jenny has now thrown herself in, devoting her entire life and work to spreading optimism throughout the world, and to take that passionate leap into what is the unknown, but will make such a difference to humanity. When Jenny told me, I was just overwhelmed with joy and admiration.
Well, that just shows, that the character of the person, in my opinion. And, as we were discussing, prior, just before, coming on the live, Victor, you mentioned that you've actually taken a bit of a hiatus from your legal practice to promote optimism. And, what a beautiful initiative, honestly, because, especially during, in what's going on in this world at this present moment, we can't have enough of it. And Jenny brought up such an important point. The decisions that we personally make play such an important role. The choice is in our hands. The actions we take and the choices we make, play such a huge impact on our future. We can either choose to be our own cheerleader or our naysayer. The choice is ours. The one, the part of our mindset that we feed is the part which will actually sort of, grow into our existence, so to speak. What are your thoughts on that, Victor?
Well, look, you are spot on. So this project, my original Centre for Optimism, is the offspring of the Australian Leadership Project. And it became clear that there was nothing much wrong with the leadership. You look at the world, it's growing, everyone's getting healthier, there's more food, it's, the world is getting better, but there's this fog of pessimism. And Dominic Barton, who was then the head of McKinsey, said to me, look, every great leader I've ever met is infectiously optimistic, but it's not the big man at the podium saying, I'm optimistic and you should be so. It's the person who can unlock the optimism from the team. And Bob Iger, who's recently retired from Disney, reinvented Disney again to make it prosperous and successful. He has 10 in his autobiography, 10 features of the contemporary leader. Number one is infectious optimism. Korn Ferry, the global recruitment firm, one of the 3 factors of great leadership in their research papers is infectious optimism. So it's this notion of, through your own action, through your own example, being optimistic, because as Gandhi said, look, we can't change anyone else. All we can do is change ourselves. So, we've got wonderful people online here, Joseph, Karen, Zara, Yanis, Misucci, Sean. Why don't we ask some of them, just in a sentence, what makes you optimistic? Is it your religion, your faith in humanity, your love of Joseph, your love of children? And when you're heading up, one of the most successful things I've done in prison, in major corporates, Joseph, is to say to people, optimism shouldn't change too often. But maybe every 3 months, at the beginning of your exec meeting, at the beginning of your board meeting, instead of having that stupid question, what's keeping you awake at night, replace that with what makes you optimistic. And don't ask for work-related answers. So, you will hear about children. We did something in the tax department in New Zealand. One of the most moving answers was from a woman who said, my husband was cleared of bowel cancer last Friday. The thing that carried us through 18 months of treatment was faith and optimism. You could just imagine how everyone in the room was moved by that. And so if you ask that question of people, what makes you optimistic, and you don't do it by surprise, you actually put it on the agenda, right? Next week, we're having a board meeting. Question 1 will be what makes you optimistic. And you will be amazed at how much you learn about your fellow man and woman. And do you know the interesting thing, Joseph, is most people have not asked their husband or wife what makes them optimistic. And most people are amazed when they ask their husband or wife what makes them optimistic, how rich the answer is, and how much they learn about a partner they may have lived with for 10 or 20 years just in asking that question.
So
Joseph,
true.
Joseph, if I can add, so when I first met Victor and Noirin, we had a meeting and Victor spoke about this question. Like, it really blew me away because I think there's so much power in amazing questions. I think it's just incredible. And I run a lot of events. And so I decided that at the end of each event, rather than saying, could you tell me how you feel? What did you get out of it? Whatever it was, I decided to change the question to what makes you optimistic? And I can't explain to you the impact of that question. It blew me away. The first time I asked it was like the room, and this is all online in COVID, the room was electric. And the way it made people feel, I just can't let that go. And so I end every event with that question. And it just makes others feel amazing. And when others feel amazing, you can't help but feel amazing. But really makes such an impact, that simple question.
Joseph, I've had a few events lately where people have said, you are the best speaker we've ever had. And I laugh at that because I've cut my speech to about 10 minutes. Right? I'm given an hour as a keynote and I speak for 10 minutes. The other 50 minutes are people in the room sharing what makes them optimistic. And I actually recently did a Rotary meeting. You know, Rotary is very strict on finish on the hour. They went 40 minutes over because everyone was sharing their optimism and everyone was inspired by each other's optimism. And I actually had someone joke yesterday. We had a Christmas party yesterday, and one of my old acquaintances, oh, Victor, you're like me. You always like the sound of your own voice. And I said, you'd be amazed, Andrew. I'm now down to a 10-minute speech.
Good on you. You brought up such a valid point, actually, with regards. It's all about being able to connect with the person. That's where the engagement element comes in. And that's what people resonate with, and it's about being there. It's about being present, not just for yourself, which is very, very important, but also for others around you. Because during this time, it's shown us that the best gift that you can actually give someone is your presence, just being there. You don't have to provide financial support or any other kind of support. You just have to be there. You don't even have to say anything. It's just that when a person knows that there is that that shoulder that they can lean upon, that makes so much of difference. So we've had a few people actually telling us what makes them optimistic. So Sharifa says that she's always optimistic. Good on you, Sharifa. Sean says that her ability to help others. Good on you, and thank you for obviously making a difference in the world. Zara said her mindset. And Joy says, love of Joseph is right at the top. Brother, you're very, very kind. So,
and Melody is there with faith and purpose. Do you know there's a study out of Italy, Joseph? Well, there's two big studies. One is from Harvard, the American military, and Boston University, which has found I shall ask you the question. What is the determinant, Joseph, of healthy longevity? Living to 85 with your marbles and good health. It's not wealth. It's not geography. It's not genetics. It's the trait of optimism.
Absolutely.
And there's an Italian study that shows that people over the age of 100 who are still active in public life, the two traits are optimism and purpose. And you know, to see Melody and others exemplifying that. Do you remember, Bill George, the Harvard leadership expert who wrote True North? When I asked him what makes you optimistic, Bill said, being surrounded by positive people. What a blessing. And Joseph, as I look at the love that comes to you from the people commenting, you are very blessed to be surrounded by so many positive people.
Thank you so much, Victor. It's been a humbling experience, honestly, on LinkedIn, and especially in this last year. There have been moments where I have literally been like, it's hard. It's been hard, for me through a few things that I'm going through in my personal as well as my professional life. But it's in my opinion, LinkedIn has been that saving grace, that semblance of sanity in this world of perpetual pause that we're facing at the moment. So, I couldn't be more thankful to my amazing network and friends from around the world. Some of you who have joined in this LinkedIn Live, and I really, really thank you. And definitely thank you to Noirin and Jenny. They've been amazing, friends over these times. And Victor, it's been absolutely a pleasure to meet you today. So we've got Joy saying, and it's a very, very fair point, being able to see a team member or colleague or associate in a collaborative develop and grow in life is what drives me. Summary, simply being human and understanding that each of us have a story. That is so true. Each and every one of us is different. Each and every one of us has a story, and it's something which is very important. We should definitely focus on. Satya says, yes, it's time to pick up optimism as taking an action to support not only the local business but the world, starting from each and every one of us. Together, we will have the positive outcomes during this difficult time. Thank you so much, Satya. You couldn't have said it any better. Karen from Melbourne says, every choice I make is mine, and I own the outcome 100%. Understanding life happens for you and not to you. Brilliant, brilliant point. Just to corroborate on what we were discussing earlier, that the choices that you make and the actions that you take play such a significant role in what's going to happen in your life. So, thank you so much to be there. For your input. Brandon says the opportunities to be with family that is still here to help them solve their problems. Absolutely. I think this period has actually shown us has made a lot of things very clear as to who your real friends are, who your sometimes family is there but sometimes isn't there when you need them. So it has brought certain people closer together and it's taken certain people apart, and it just shows you as to the people who you need to surround yourselves with. As Victor, as you were mentioning, it is so important. Noirin, please go ahead.
Yeah, so on that very point, one of the habits, it's habit 9, I believe, is surround yourself with optimists. And you've just outlined all of the brilliant benefits of doing just that, actually, because it lifts yourself, you have empathy, it lifts everyone else, and it's just a good circle of optimism to keep going. Our good friend, as you know, Joseph, Michael Lane, narrates that particular habit, and he runs Success Resources, and he just basically surrounds himself with optimists, and he was just an amazing choice for that particular habit. But indeed, looking here now today, so are you, actually. So thank you.
No, my absolute pleasure. And Noirin, I'm going to actually, we've got a question from Yanis here. I'm going to post it to you to answer. So the question is, Joseph, why is positive psychology so important in 2021? Is it the pandemic, or is it just our hectic life? Or is it something that we've just found meaning with? So what I'm assuming, and what I know Yanis is focusing on here, is like, for us to be able to have this positive psychology moving forward, Is it just because of the pandemic situation that we are going through? Or is it something that we really need to focus on for self-actualization moving forward?
So, look, for me personally, I think I'm not a natural optimist. I actually have become more optimistic, unlike Jenny and Victor, who are clearly natural optimists. I actually really learned to be a lot more optimistic during COVID. So go figure. But putting the course together was amazing journey for me. So I really believe everything that's in that course because it actually helped me personally. But I actually, oddly enough, became very optimistic during a time that my own business was in lockdown. It actually still is. We can't socially distance in the venue that I'm in at the moment. So we're working virtually and online. But I'm amazed that I could actually lift my own self during this time. So I believe positive psychology can create miracles. I mean, I created this course. I became more optimistic. And it's just been an amazing year in a way, very challenging in other ways, but it's been an amazing year. So I think perhaps for me, the pandemic revealed my inner optimist, which is great. And I'm going to keep it. But yeah, it's important to keep optimism with you. Learn it, keep it, bring it forward with you.
So true, so true. I'm just going to take a moment right now to basically sort of give a glimpse to everyone who's watching as to what you can expect with regards to the Habits of an Optimist, and some of the little courses, some of the little narrations, that a few of us have done, after being invited. So yeah, I'm going to be showing mine because I'm really excited. Okay,
well, we want lots of comments from the audience. We want lots of commentary in the chat. Watch your animation.
You're very kind. You're very kind. Very kind. I mean, honestly, it's like I'm going down in the annals of history. Honestly, I've got a cartoon, looking like me, so to speak. So yeah, to everyone who's watching. Definitely would request you to go onto the website, which is projectoptimism.com.au. It is there on the post as well, so you can just click on the link and go there and have a look. The Habits of an Optimist is a course which has just been made completely complimentary to each and every person from around the world. Go in, have a look. It'll perhaps give you a lot more perspectives that you weren't expecting. Or it may just open up your mind regarding a few things which you may not have considered moving forward. So without further ado, I'm just going to play my little clip. So there are 20 of us who've actually done this, if I'm not mistaken, Noirin.
Yes.
So yeah. So here's my clip on how important it is to forgive like an optimist.
To forgive is one of the most optimistic and powerful acts you could ever do. Forgiveness is a release of resentment or anger. Forgiveness does not mean you forget the action of harm or deceit, but in acknowledging the act, you can perhaps move forward to heal and grow from the experience. Forgiveness has been shown to elevate mood, enhance optimism, and guard against anger, stress, anxiety, and ultimately depression. Not all situations can have the process of forgiveness, and this is always the choice of the forgiver. Have you processed the situation for yourself to move forward? Forgiveness is often the healthiest option for the forgiver, but it is their choice. Psychologist Robert Enright outlines 4 steps of forgiveness. The first is to uncover your anger.
Okay. I'm not going to do the next 3 steps. For that, you've got to go to the website. Okay. So the first step. Well, I'm a marketing strategist. So yeah. So the first step is to uncover what makes you angry. The other 3 steps, you need to go to the website, have a look. It's actually worth your time. So, all jokes apart, it's a fantastic initiative, which I'm really blessed. I'm humbled and I'm honored to be a part of. So, really, really appreciate it. So, I actually have a question for all of you, and I'm going to go, a turn by turn. So I'm sure during this year there have been moments where you have felt that this is just not happening, or you've just been down in the dumps, so to speak. If you would like to share that moment and what you tapped into from within you to come out of it, to be a bit more optimistic for the future moving forward. Jenny, if you don't mind, I'd like to start with you.
Sure. So I'm not sure if you've noticed, but I'm a pretty social person. I like to be out there. I like to be talking to people. I love surrounding myself with really positive, amazing people. And when I first heard that we were going into lockdown in Melbourne, I just thought, oh my golly, how am I going to cope? How am I going to get through this? Because I'm not used to sitting at home. I love my family to bits. And, there were just some wonderful benefits of the lockdown, which I didn't realize were going to happen. But my initial feeling was just like I'm in a jail cell. I can't cope. I want to go out and see people, very close to my broader family, like my mum and my sister and so forth. How am I not going to see these people? And it just was like this, almost like a panic came over me. But obviously, everyone had to adapt. We were all obviously in that same situation. I think I'm very, very lucky because I'm not a religious person in any way, shape or form, but I have one very strong belief, which is really, really helpful. And that is that somehow everything's going to be okay. So I just know that however crap it feels right now, things will somehow be okay, which is ultimately, I didn't realize, but ultimately that's optimism. So whether it's a learning experience, I just think that we can learn from every experience. So I really, even though I had that panic moment at the beginning, I took it as, you know what, it probably isn't bad for me to learn to actually spend a bit of time with myself as opposed to, kind of always getting that from other people as an extrovert does. So it's been quite a really, really interesting experience. And I think my optimism really helped in that way.
No, absolutely. I think, Melbourne's just gone through the world's strictest lockdown and perhaps one of the longest ones as well, 111 days, if I'm not mistaken. Triple Nelson, those of you who are cricket fans. So, it's been really, really testing. And obviously, I've got lots of friends from Melbourne and in Australia. And it wasn't something that people were, they weren't expecting. They weren't ready for it. But you just have to sometimes just roll with the punches, quite literally. And, you just have to take it and take it and take it. But just know that your inner resolve, your inner resilience, your determination and courage is going to be able to get you by. And that's the main thing. Victor, if you don't mind, would love to hear perhaps your thoughts on this.
Yeah, sure. So you've asked an intimate question. So for me, my mother died on the 10th of October. And we've gone through this year. She went from, at the age of 92, still teaching yoga to several hundred people. And she got pancreatic cancer. So she died. But, she had always supported me. I've been a member of parliament. I've been a barrister. I've been a trade commissioner. I've worked as a senior advisor to the G20. And Mum said to me, this is the most important work you have ever done, helping people to unlock their own optimism. So at her funeral, we made her funeral a very joyful thing. We celebrated life. And there I committed myself. As she did to the age of 92, I said the next 30 years are going to be a commitment to the cause of optimism. And then the other thing, of course, we'd opened the world's first shop of optimism. And of course, as the lockdown came on, we couldn't keep the shop open. It didn't comply with the COVID rules. So again, we had to shut the world's first shop of optimism and move everything online as you have, to use Zoom and the like. And we now have members in 69 countries. So for us, in fact, online now becomes more natural than, meeting people in real life. Now, to be truly optimistic, it's much better to be in the same room and looking into people's eyes and, smelling them. So for me, it was the challenge, firstly, of, there I was, my pride and joy, decorated in yellow and orange, the world's first shop of optimism, and we had to close it. But obviously at the more intimate level, the death of the strongest influence in my life for, all of my 62 years, but getting her feedback that said, what we're doing is so important. And to have, Noirin and Jenny, join in this marvelous project. Mum saw the first examples of that before she died. For me, it's been, a year of what could have been quite tragic. But in every instance, it's remained optimistic, because optimism, we actually go back 700 years to an English mystic called Mother Julian of Norwich, who the oldest book surviving in English by a woman. And she said, so she lived through the Black Death, the worst plague in human history. And she said, all shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. And that's the definition that Harvard and the American military and Oxford now use, just in slightly more modern language. And all of your listeners, this is something to remember. Optimism is a belief that things will work out in the end, and to which some people add, and Noirin's very good at doing this in her beautiful Irish accent, if it hasn't worked out, it's not the end.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And my deepest and sincerest condolences, Victor. And thank you so much for for all the people who are listening as well, who are sending their condolences to you and your family. To be strong. Obviously, the loss of a parent is something which can't be explained if you've not faced it yourself. And
the interesting thing, Joseph, is we're only allowed to have 10 people at the funeral.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
But,
that was
Yeah, but we therefore the funeral parlor and the church said, broadcast it. Do you know, friends of mine I haven't seen for 20 years, family members in America and Germany, all brought together in a celebration. So, the COVID forcing us to only have 10 people in the church and 10 people at the burial actually made it an event that allowed hundreds of people from outside the geography to celebrate her life too. Would you believe, Joseph, we did a wake online. We did a Zoom wake. And we had 90-year-olds and 92-year-olds, and we broke them into groups, and we continued the celebration of her life again. And so, it's obviously sad, but at 92, and when she said, I understand, my death, and, she remained optimistic to the end. And I think, the challenge to each and every one of us, when we're in that, the pain of death or the like, how do we transmit that to the next generation? How do we make? And so my 15-year-old son gave a eulogy, Joseph, and it was the epitome of a teenager talking about his grandmother and talking about how she lived at the age of 15. And, she was under bombing, she lived under Hitler, she lived under Stalin, right? And yet her generation came through absolutely optimistic. And that old Nietzschean principle that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You actually look at this generation of people in their 80s and 90s, how strong they are. And, to everyone, just remember that old person in your family or that old person in your neighborhood has so much wisdom.
Very true. Very, very true. And thank you so much for sharing that. It's definitely something which one doesn't want to obviously go through, but that's, that's the reality of life. You will face loss. You will face situations which you ideally don't want to be a part of. But it's that inner resilience. It's that it's that inner spark that keeps you moving. Looking at something for the greater good moving forward. So thank you so much for this very personal share, Victor. Really, really appreciate it. Noirin, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us a moment this year,
Well, there's a few moments, but I mean, one that kind of came sort of at the beginning of COVID, I suppose, and really sort of forged the way for me going forward was realizing, I guess, that I couldn't control very much at the start of lockdown. Realizing that I was helpless. I was helpless, really, with my entertainment business, Race Party. I couldn't do anything. I had to kind of go into a lockdown and just take a step back and wait and see. And but at a time that I felt the most helpless, I was able to activate Educate to Elevate with Jenny, which was already happening. We really doubled down on it. And we helped so many people put their IP online, their various courses that they had been delivering face-to-face. They were actually able to now do it in an online way, in a very meaningful education learning process. And we really helped people. So I learned that in not being able to help myself, I could help others, and that was great. So I just kept on going with that, and then obviously the whole optimism journey happened as well. So I think and that really fueled me to keep going. And we did a lot of online courses for various different groups now, and it's been a great feeling. It's been a great feeling of helping people. So I would say there was a number of low moments during COVID for me, but the biggest one was at the beginning, actually, and that was a total loss of control, but then getting it back and going for it.
Good on you, and thank you so much, Noirin, for sharing that. It's so important. You just keep going, right? There are going to be insurmountable walls which come up sometimes. We just have to find a way through it. It's all about just tapping into that inner mindset to basically just keep going, and find that inner reserves of strength, so to speak, which we sometimes don't even understand. Adversity brings out our character, right?
It does.
No.
But actually, I was going to say, and that's actually the biggest thing about optimism.
Yeah.
It's hope and keeping going. I mean, some people have very amazing definitions. We all love the different definitions that we hear from time to time, and mine changes on a weekly basis at this stage. That's okay. It doesn't matter. But I think the most important thing is just to have hope somehow and to keep going, because every day is another day. Every day, every day, every day. And all we have is every day at a time. So keep going and just live and be in the moment and do your best at that moment and believe in the day to come.
Fair enough. No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. There was another question that actually Giannis asked before. I can't, we've had so many comments after this, I can't seem to find it. But I found it. Okay, so the question was that Giannis asked, and it's a very, very pertinent question. Why do we need Project Optimism? Isn't taking an optimism test online enough to discover it? Interesting question. I mean, I'm happy to answer it, but I'd love to actually, get your perspective, Noirin.
Isn't taking an optimism test online enough to discover it? I'm not sure what that means, actually. What do you mean optimism test online? As in, like, doing a test?
So there's a series of tests that come out of the University of Pennsylvania and have been redeveloped. And actually, I've been involved in them, for instance, with a couple of very large commercial organizations. So, what you can do is test optimism. And there's a very large organization which tested 50,000 members. Now, not all 50,000 participated, but what they discovered in this testing was, you meet the person front up. They might be a really important lawyer or CEO or something, and you meet them front up, and they are, my kids are doing well, I'm doing well, the company's doing well, but they're actually untrusting of other people. They don't really empathize with other people. So what we're about with Project Optimism is actually doesn't matter how optimistic you start off with, there is a habit that you can adopt that will make you more optimistic. So I'll give you the example of number 3, which is the greetings of an optimist. So I've used this in prison and elsewhere. And we were talking about, Joseph and I were talking about this before the show. So typically in France or Australia, if you say to someone, how are you? G'day, how are you? Hello, how are you? People respond with not bad or not too bad. It is a wasted question and a wasted answer. So what I counsel people to do is to say, hello, g'day, what's the best thing happening in your day? Or what's been the best thing in your day? Or what's the best thing going on? And you bias the question from the very beginning to the positive. Now, if the person says to you, bloody nothing, well, you know there's a question you need to ask them about what's going wrong. But instead of wasting your greeting with a how are you and an answer that you don't listen to, Giannis, just try this for the next week. You get a refund on my speech if it doesn't work. Right? So every person you meet in the next week, whatever comes natural to you, hello or g'day, oh, what's the best thing happening? Or what's been the best thing in your day? And you will find every conversation improves. And if you're in sales or the like, that's what you want in life. And I did a radio interview in New Zealand recently, and the commentator said, well, I've been plagiarizing this man for the last year. And I'm thinking, no, you can't plagiarize me because I want you to use the stuff. Every one of his clients now, when he walks in, they know he wants to hear a story of hope and optimism from them, not a whinge about the government or a whinge about the weather. He wants to hear you say something good. So, Giannis, what we're about is not testing your level of optimism. You can be extremely optimistic or you can have low optimism. What we're about with Project Optimism is lifting you and allowing you to lift others. And, you know, to tell the story of Noirin, Noirin rang me and said, look, I really want to help the people who've lost their jobs through COVID. And I said, well, look, you know, you've got government schemes, you've got all sorts of people, you know, who are involved in that. The thing you can do, Noirin, is lift them to look after themselves. And if you have a look at Project Optimism, you know, Noirin with Jenny have produced a product with Joseph that will stand the test of time and on which we will probably build 1,000 children bringing more optimism to the world. I'm very passionate about this because Noirin and Jenny and Joseph have just, you know, filled my heart with joy. So it's not a matter of testing people for how optimistic they are. What we're about is a bit like the old example of, you know, you can give a person a fish and they'll eat it once. We're giving them a fishing line or a fishing net and they will have more optimism for the rest of their lives.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And I couldn't agree more with you, Victor. Thank you so much for adding that. So, I mean, see, the thing is, it's all about, and, you know, someone mentioned earlier, I think it was Karen from Melbourne. It's like, you know, it's a sum total of the 5 people who you surround yourselves with, right? Which sort of elevate the kind of person who you are, the kind of society you live in, the kind of mindset that you have moving forward, etc. And that is so important. So I mean, my question to everyone in the audience, as well as to the 3 of you, you know, obviously, you know, we are living in the world of social media, right, at this present moment. And you know, there are so many influencers, impactors, you know, social media personalities, celebrities, etc., who've actually gone through some really difficult times. The person who comes to mind, one of the people who comes to mind is Sylvester Stallone, for example, before he did the Rocky movies, right? If he had given up, we would have missed out on one of the best, you know, Hollywood series of all times, in my opinion. And I know Brother Joy Abdullah would love it because, you know, he loves boxing. So I mean, so, you know, my question to you: who comes to mind when you're thinking of, you know, who's an optimistic leader who you can think up to? You know, the first person that comes to mind to me was Sylvester Stallone, for example. You know, another person, you know, that comes to mind is perhaps Nelson Mandela, and the work that he's done, obviously, you know, through the apartheid, you know, movement, etc., in South Africa. Victor, you know, who comes to mind when you think of an optimistic leader?
So historically, you know, you picked White Mandela, you know, keep your face to the sun and keep walking forward. Or Gandhi, you know, as the English called it, here in the nappy, you know, it just went on and on. Today, the realistic and infectiously optimistic leaders, Angela Merkel's up there near the top. You know, she is, you know, she's, who could have imagined, you know, bringing East Germany into the Western world without bankrupting West Germany. And yet,
Fair point.
she has led this merging of the two countries through COVID, through the contest with China for manufacturing. And, when she came to Brisbane for the summit, she's such a good person. She went on a pub crawl to meet all the German backpackers. She is infectious. And then Jacinda Ardern, in New Zealand.
Jacinda Ardern, yep.
Just remember, when the awful thing happened in the mosques and then, the volcano, right? She's optimistic. Her language on climate change, she is one of the most optimistic, great leaders in the world, because she says, don't just be paralyzed by fear. Each and every one of you can do something about climate change. Plant a tree, use green energy, whatever. But just remember, she went and hugged people. Right, it's that simple act of hugging. Our first habit of the optimist, the one that I've narrated, is smile like an optimist. Now, the four of us are smiling, but people forget. So to each of your watchers and listeners, for the rest of the day, everyone you go past in the street or elsewhere, smile at them. And you will be infected by it. They will be infected by it.
Awesome.
So for me, it's a long answer too, but Angela Merkel's near the top for me. Jacinda Ardern's near the top for me. The Australian Prime Minister is an optimist too, always keeping going. And then historically, my two favourite optimists are Mandela and Gandhi.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. We've got Melody saying President Obama comes to mind. Absolutely. I really admire him as a leader. And we've got Johnson saying Jesus Christ. Yes, absolutely. I would say. Thank you for your input. Really appreciate it. Karen Lee Morrison agrees with you, Victor, that Angela Merkel is a hoot. She's definitely a hoot. You wouldn't expect a country leader to go on a pub crawl if you're not a hoot. That's just like brilliant. Awesome. All right. So Jenny, who's an optimistic leader? Who comes to mind?
Oh, well, there are just so many. I'm not going to mention all the ones that Victor mentioned, because I would totally agree with him. I suppose for me, being in the business world for such a long time, for me, when I think of leaders, I think of business leaders who really, like, the sky's the limit and are all about innovation. Because to me, business and optimism are just hand in hand. You can't say, I'm going to start a business, it's going to fail tomorrow. No one does that. That's just not what you do. So by being in business, you are an optimist by definition. You're working your guts out day and night, night and day, for the hope that your idea will become an incredible reality. So I love the Richard Bransons, the Elon Musk.
Absolutely.
The people who at creating a reality of something that how long have we been talking about electric vehicles and flying cars? And I think those people who push the boundaries of what's the norm now and able to see into the future of what is potentially possible and actually invest in it, put their money where their mouth is, and actually invest in innovation. And a lot of them are very collaborative thinkers. Like, to me, we're not going to solve the world's problems, me sitting in my house and you are all sitting in yours. But if we can bring our minds together and actually work together to collaborate and bring our own experiences to the table, that's where magic happens. So I think all of those are examples of how that works when my great minds come together and innovate.
Beautifully said. Couldn't agree more. I think, and the point you've actually raised here is so valid. Entrepreneurship, you can't be a successful entrepreneur if you're always having a negative mindset. You have to be optimistic about the future, because trust me, it's not an easy task to be an entrepreneur. I've been there, done that. I've been in the MNC field for a very, very long time. I do have an entrepreneurship streak within me, and it is not easy. It is not easy. I mean, people closest to you will question your sanity when you become an entrepreneur, and all you sometimes have is just your own inner strength to just keep going. So lovely, beautiful point raised there, Jenny. Noirin, last but not the least, I think they've taken all the good options from you.
I found two.
Go for it.
Not by one. Anyway, I agree with everyone from Jenny and Victor's list. I mean, they're adding more to the list, to my list. My two are, one's present and is a practical optimist, and one is from the past. So Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, as he's commonly known. I mean, he's a practical optimist. Like he swears, he talks straight, he's so eloquent, but he's so convincing.
Yep.
For me, he deconstructs optimism and says, look, there's practical, applications for it. You'll do better. You'll think better. You'll go further. Use it. Be an optimist, Like he comes at it from a different angle, and it's practical and it's real and it's highly impactful and effective. So I think he's a fantastic leader in optimism. Second one is someone who wasn't necessarily a leader as such, and he was in comedy, but I think he was a leader by virtue of how he acted and how he influenced and helped so many people laugh, which is another habit of an optimist, and smile. And that is Charlie Chaplin.
Yep.
And one of his great phrases and sayings was, "You'll never see a rainbow if you're looking down."
Yeah.
I love that about him. And I just think that he's someone that will just last for the ages. And you know what? He lived in the moment. Like, he made us all laugh. He helped us all live in the moment. So I think he's a leader of optimism as well.
Joseph, I failed to mention one. Sorry, my favorite one. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, go for it.
Noirin knows exactly who I'm going to say. Simon Sinek. I mean, what an incredible leader of optimism. I just, such a role model for so many.
Most definitely. Couldn't agree more. I think all of you have named some really amazing people, and thank you also for the inputs from the audience. Really, really appreciate it. And thank you so much for this fantastic conversation that we've had, for a little bit over an hour. So time just flew. I'm just looking at the time, and we were just having some really, really realistic, real conversations with regards to optimism. Is something you can work on, even in the darkest of moments. It's all about finding that spark within you and basically reigniting it, and that's the main thing. And Elaine here loves that quote as well from Charlie Chaplin. You'll never see a rainbow if you're looking down. That is so true. Noirin, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that's a wonderful way to sort of actually bring this episode to a close. Keep looking up. There are lots of things around you which are negative. There are so many people around you who are going to be telling you that you can't do it. The worst thing that you can do is keep looking down and be your own naysayer. There are so many other people to do that for you. Don't add to the number. Just try and be optimistic as much as possible moving forward. And thank you once again, honestly, Noirin, Jenny, and Victor for coming on the show. To discuss your journeys with regards to Project Optimism, of course, and network. Please have a look. Take a moment to go to www.projectoptimism.com.au. It's very, very well thought out. The courses are completely free. The Habits of an Optimist. You'll be able to see certain elements with regards to how you can channel certain emotions to further it to be more optimistic moving forward for yourself in your own personal life as well as in your professional life. So thank you so much once again to all of you who have joined in. It's an absolute honor to be connected to all of you wonderful people. Noirin, Victor, and Jenny, I appreciate the time that all of you have taken out of your busy schedules and to come on the show and to discuss Project Optimism. It's an honor and a humbling pleasure from my end to be a part of it. And so many of our amazing friends from around the world as well who are part of Project Optimism. So thank you once again. Wishing you all a fantastic day ahead. And to all of you who are watching, please don't forget to go to projectoptimism.com.au And thanks once again. Have a lovely day ahead. Take care.
Thanks, Joseph.
Thank you.
See ya.